सारे मेरे सत श्री अकाल, आदाब, नमस्कार. In this edition of the Indian Thought, I, Sushmeet Singh, bring to you the recent coverage for the India-China face-off that has happened in Ladakh. So we will be discussing about how we can actually teach China a lesson which it seriously needs to learn. So let's start it. Firstly, India has to announce its support for HTT nations, that is Hong Kong, Tibet and Taiwan. These nations are being annexed by China, and India, being the largest democracy of the world, has its responsibility to help the innocent people of these nations so that they can democratize and live for their self-governance. Not only ensures and promotes larger human welfare, but also ensures that India will not stay quiet if it tries to annex any part of the Indian territory with its false claims. Second such step can be the Indo-Pacific Regional Security Arrangement. This should comprise of Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, Philippines, Taiwan, Indonesia, Singapore, Australia and many more nations, but not the US, because it has been rolling back itself from various previous security arrangements. Further, what can actually be dealt here is that maps of these member states can be exchanged in order to promote the claims of their indigenous and respective sovereignty and territorial claims to keep China under hook and account, so that China remembers that each time it is going to launch aggression against any of the member states, it will be taken to hook by all of the member states collectively. Further, this alliance has the potential to withdraw its trade relations from China and to in fact substitute its trade relation with every member state in order to replace the China from the entire global sphere of trading relationships. And this further means that on one hand China would be pushed into a recession artificially. It also means that the member states would get more affluent in the process and thereby would be able to increase the military capabilities, and thereby China has to cut its military expenditure. If the recession continues, then the way Soviet Union was overthrown by its own people, in the same manner China would also be overthrown one day by its miffled people and its failure regime. The third security pact that can be signed can be a forum of democracies for democracy, which means that the Western world has to come together, all democratic nations have to come together so that they can bring a positive change in terms of teaching the Chinese nationals about democracy. Currently, China is a thriving economy largely due to its ability to manipulate the mindsets and intellectual abilities of its people through controlled curriculums and censorship. The forum of democracies for democracy can over here fill up this vacuum by presenting the ideals and examples of democratic leadership to the Chinese nationals so that they can bring home a lasting change. One such small step that can be taken place is ensuring that any Chinese national that applies for visa in any of the Western world should actually go through a test which takes into account the skills of democratic proficiency, so that it can be ensured that the Chinese nationals are able to take a part in the democratic society or not. This will ensure that not only China is able to bring some sort of revoke of ban on the best of the textbooks on democracy, but it also ensures that the world gets a good trade partner in terms of a checked China. It is also one of the humble responsibility of the best democracies of the world to tell the Chinese national how the current premier of China is very much against its own predecessors who got in fixed terms and institutional mechanisms so that no one premier can concentrate power into his or her hands. The fourth aspect of teaching China a lesson is the internet. China's economic success lies in hacking networks and databases of high-end companies to steal designs and research and development reports so that it can kickstart their economy by reverse engineering of manufacturing high-end equipments. And what does this mean? Actually, what this means is that चोर के घर में चोरी ताकि border पे बंद हो सीना जोरी isn't a bad idea either, because the Chinese economy has been a result of hacking their competitors from the Western world, and if the Western world, or in fact anyone, tries to hack the Chinese system so that they can get the information out, is not going to be a bad deal either. Another way of teaching China a lesson is through bringing into account the legitimacy of itself, of the Chinese government. How can this happen? Because the legitimacy of the Chinese government right now comes from a firewall, and if this firewall gets compromised, then all of its citizens would actually get to know what the Chinese government does in actual and claims to its citizens. The fifth aspect calls for learning for India. What this means is that China has printed cash and given to its people along with the high-end value of information that it has hacked from the Western information systems. And in this way, India can also do the same. Investment in China boosts the domestic consumption, but it does not happen in India, because whenever any investment comes in India, the consumption part is actually transferred to buying goods from China, which in result makes a problem for India because the whole value chain gets destroyed. They treat every economic project as an opportunity to create employment and use up the resources that they have, whereas what India needs to learn is that the red tape and bureaucratic systems of India has made every infrastructure project a sardardi rather than an opportunity, because no project in India gets completed on time, whereas China सड़क बनाता बनाता OBOR ले आया, वो सड़क बनाते हुए इंडिया में घुसाए, बट हम सड़क बनाते हुए अब उनसे बेहतर हाइट्स पर पहुंचेंगे. दिस इज़ व्हाट वी नीड टू लर्न फ्रॉम देम. It is imperative for us to understand what the Chinese model of business is. I would give you a comparison of how India and the Chinese model of business operates. Any Indian trader invests 1 rupee and tries to see a return of 2 to 3 rupees within the short term, and therefore loses the market to the Chinese in the long run. But the Chinese, on the other hand, buy cheap and tries to produce cheap, because it is a state-owned capitalism. Therefore, what India needs to do in such a case is that something that Jio has done by making the prices competitive and offering high-end value services, it has attracted a lot of profit which no other telecom company was able to make with their old previous models. Therefore, what India needs to learn is to reshuffle or to readjust the economic models or the business models in a way so that we can compete against China in terms of pricing, which includes making the costs much lower. The profit returns should be much lower as compared to what they are in India right now. So these were a few ways in which we can take in China. If China is not taken to hook, is not taken to account today, then it is going to be another Pakistan for us, because the way they actually have become a problem for us and our soldiers in the past few years or since independence, we cannot allow China to be given a free hand so that they can do whatever they have to. For every Chinese action, there has to be an alliance, there has to be a pact which gets signed and is also implemented as soon as possible, because that is how the Chinese work. And one thing which we need to remember is China cannot be trusted at all, because in the name of de-escalation, they martyred our 20 soldiers. So how can you trust this nation? Therefore, it is important for us to actually disengage the Chinese Communist Party from power, and by all of these aspects, this is an attempt to do so. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.